Hey everybody, this is Matt Orr from Wet Ink Games, and I'm here today with John Kennedy, and they've written for just so many game companies. We got Onyx Path, Weirvin Games, Modifius Games, Third Eye Games, Wet Ink Games. John is one of those persons who you probably have seen their name on something you've loved. It probably was partially written by John Kennedy. So, John, thank you for joining me today.
Oh, thank you.
So we're going to start off with a little bit of like, you got the sort of forced choices thing. You got to choose. You got to come down on one side or the other, right? So here you go. Is it the Defiant or the Reliant?
Oh man. Okay, that's literally like kind of like the one gotcha question that I don't think I could answer. Wow.
You can pass. You can pass.
The Reliant, only
Okay.
because Star Trek 2 is one of those movies where I will annoy everyone in the room because I can recite almost all of the lines right as when they're being spoken. And so like it had like the biggest impact on me growing up. But the Defiant's amazing. So you kind of like it's kind of like one of those, do you want coffee or I mean, do you want like cake or pie? And I'm like, oh man, I like cake and pie.
Yeah. How can I choose? How can I choose?
Yeah,
All right. So uh, you might notice a theme here. So the next one is the Romulans or the Cardassians.
I'm gonna say the Romulans. I've just always been a fan of them. I love the Romulan Warbird. I found the Cardassians were an amazing antagonist throughout Deep Space Nine, though. But no, I would have to say the Romulans.
All right. And one more in this category, and then we'll switch gears a little bit. The Star Trek V, Final Frontier, or Insurrection? Which one
Wow,
are you going to watch? You got to choose one.
got to choose one. I'm gonna say five because I like to watch the original six pretty often. Um, and
It does have that great
uh,
mountain climbing scene at the beginning.
and the
Marshall,
jetpack boots, which were cool.
jetpack boots, jetpack boots. All right.
Uh, I like the one line that Kirk says when he's arguing with Cybok, which is like, I don't know if I can say cuss words here, but it's like the one cuss word in the movie. It's like, no bones, I need my pain. And I'm like, I like that line, but overall, the movie is like, even by the end of the movie, where it's sort of like, what does God need with a starship? It sounds like something that came up in the writer's room. And like just one writer raised his hand and goes, wait, it needs a ship? Isn't it God? Why does God need a starship?
No, we're just putting it down right like it came up in the writer's room. That's how it goes. All right. So changing gears, the rest of these are going to be various themes. So Stargate Atlantis or Stargate Universe? So,
Atlantis, because I love the world building and I love the characters. They made me like Rodney McKay, where when he showed up in SG1, he was super annoying. Um, which honestly, I got to put in like a little dig in the upcoming Stargate RPG about Rodney McKay. I can't say what it is, but it was really nice to put that in there. But I love how his character changed and just throughout Atlantis, and it's like he could be insufferable, like, but you still rooted for him. Where it's kind of like, man, he's a jerk, but you know what? He's our jerk,
uh,
and I want him to beat the race. And Universe is good. I think Universe needed like a second season. It had so much promise, and I liked where they were going with it. Um, but overall, I feel like it was just one of those shows where they were thinking long term, and they never got that. So they put in groundwork, but there was nothing left. And also, like, I love the new Battlestar Galactica, but it felt like they were trying to go for like a very grimdark Stargate, and that's fine. I like grimdark as a genre, but for me, after a certain point, I was just saying, oh, I don't like any of these characters. I don't know if I want them to come back to Earth. It seems like we took like the worst people and we just put them on a ship and catapulted them across the universe. And it's like, okay, they can stay there. But no, so Atlantis.
excellent, excellent. All right. And so I'm not sure why I wrote this one down, but it just seemed like the right kind of question to ask you. Katy Perry or Taylor Swift?
Katy Perry. Love
Wow.
Katy.
Right to the answer. So
Oh yeah.
it's like
No, like I just love her music. I love like her music videos. I love Dark Horse, which I just thought was fantastic, and I like Taylor Swift. Okay, I really have nothing against Taylor Swift, but Katy Perry.
Cool. And one more, uh, Flareon or Pidgeotto?
Flareon.
All right, excellent. So now that those important questions have been answered, I have a question for you, and something that lets you bring all your vast experience of being in the RPG world for a bit of time now. What are the big differences between writing for a big company where you get to work on Star Trek and Stargate, these big licensed IPs, or working for a relatively small company, or even a tiny company like Wet Ink Games, where you're working on something where you've worked on Wild Skies and Heckin Good Doggos is what you're working on now. So like, what are the big differences between those the kind of projects?
So I'll start with the things that are the same, where one of the things that you notice when you work with like both Wet Ink Games or working with Modifius, is that you're still working with people who have a lot of passion. Um, when you're working for like, any game company out there, you're going to be working with people who are just like excited to be getting what's been going on in their heads on the page so that it can go in front of the reader. And there's no feeling in the world to be able to like point at a book and say, yeah, I've got like 10,000 words in that, or I've got 5,000 words in that one. And when you surround yourself with just like a really dedicated crew, from the writers to the line developer to the artists and even the editors. Editors are like just like they're unsung heroes. Where I know it might seem weird to pick up a book and go, there's some great editing in here. But the reason a book will read well is because the editor helps like refine it and make it read well. And layout artists especially. Like if a book has really bad layout, it can be jarring to the reader. It can throw things off. It can make things difficult to find. And like even layout artists are just like amazing for helping make a book what it is. And it's a lot of things when comparing working for a big company and a little company is um, making sure that everybody is excited. Because if the project's kind of a chore, it doesn't matter if you're working on like a Star Wars book or if you're working on some indie game. If the people who are making it aren't having fun, I guarantee you that the end result will not be fun. The end result will like, I don't want to say that like writers put pieces of themselves into a book, but you can just definitely tell when it's like, oh, chapter 6. Oh, it seems like the writer didn't really know where he was going and didn't want to finish this. And they're going into detail about, Romulan cuisine, but it's all boring stuff. Well, I kind of wanted spaceships and star battles. And
Right.
but where it's different is that working for a big company, for example, working on Star Trek, we have to play in a universe that's way bigger than what we're going to be doing. When we work on Star Trek, we are working in a universe where hundreds of writers have already stepped before, where there have been so many TV shows and movies and comic books and toys. And when we step in there, it like we have to be cognizant of what came before and what we're going to add to it. And also combine that with the fact that we're doing a license. So in the end, CBS has to approve what we make. So I could want to add in like a sentient race of dragons who fly around in massive starships that look like, sailing yachts. And they're just like the biggest, like, bruisers on the block. And they can beat up the Klingons and the Federation and the Romulans all at the same time. But one, that's just a weird thing to just kind of shoehorn into the Star Trek setting. Yeah. And two, there's no one at CBS who's going to go, yeah, let's add your dragons to Star Trek. That's kind of what Star Trek needed. So you have to play within the confines of what fits the game, if that makes sense, where there's plenty of room to make new things. But really you have to be like, okay, so I'm going to be writing about Cardassians. Well, what have we already seen the Cardassians do? And what can I do that makes a Cardassian interesting to the reader? Because if I just copied Gul Dukat and put in Gul Dukat's like brother, and he's also evil, and he also does Power 8 stuff, and the reader's gonna go, man, I just like Gul Dukat. I don't like his dollar store version that this guy wrote.
You never want to be reminded as a reader or as a any sort of consumer of any sort of media, of like the thing that is better than the thing you're consuming.
Oh yeah.
Like if it, like you said, if
The
it's
other
just go ahead.
well, because you definitely want to make sure that like there's plenty of room to do your own thing. And I've worked with some amazing line developers. Jim Johnson is fantastic. And he's definitely one of those developers where he likes to do like the, and then rather than just no. Because he'll be like, okay, no, we've already done that, or that concept just doesn't seem that great. But what can we do to make this better? And he'll just throw out like advice. And even if the concept has to be shelved because it wouldn't work, it's great to work with people who are able to go, no, you had a great idea. Let's see if we can make it a better idea to make it the best thing to put in this book. And if it doesn't work this time, we'll try again tomorrow. And now with working for like a smaller company, the big difference is that you're working on like very niche products, like working on Wild Skies, where Wild Skies is an amazing game. I don't have to sell it to you. But the thing about Wild Skies is it's that sort of concept where like it's you're in a world where there's all these sort of like anthropomorphic species, and they can fly around and they go on adventures, and getting to work with like creators to get this really new concept, even if it is based off of some things that have come before, but you get to work on this really new concept, and you get to just kind of like look into this vast void of what gaming has not touched, and then you get to like bring it to life. Because that might be a concept where a major company might just pass just because they're like, no, we make Dungeons and Dragons books. We're all Dungeons and Dragons. That's all we do. But working on a small project, you get to work with just these people who are like, no, let's make a game. Let's call it Wild Skies, and let's get it out to the people. And especially like a game like Never Going Home, which again, you guys worked on. It's a fantastic game. It's just amazing. It's just one of those things where if you try to describe the concept like shorthand to like someone who's like a big game designer, they might be like, oh, that's great, but we make Starfinder, so we need Starfinder stuff. But with smaller companies, you get the chance to make brand new things that people may not even know that it's their favorite thing in the world. Like, it's just really great to just like watch people go, oh, like I really like Ninja. If only there was a game where I could just play as a group of ninja fighting against an evil empire. And then Eloy Lasanta comes in and goes, oh, you mean like Ninja Crusade?
You mean like Ninja Crusade? Yeah.
Yeah. And so you don't get like the benefits of like, there's no indie company that's going to be able to work on Star Trek because that's an IP that wants to get shopped out to like major companies.
Right.
But you get to make the next cool thing. And it might be something that someone only plays for like 6 months, they never touch again. But the memories they get and the joy they have trying something new. Like my gaming group, we're just about to get into Urban Shadows, and when we tried to pitch it to them a while back, they were like, "Oh, so it's not quite World of Darkness," because they're all big World of Darkness fans. But now that they've read the book and I've showed it to them, they're all excited. They've never played Apocalypse World before, so they're all reading through the playbooks, figuring out what their moves are going to be, and it's really great.
That's cool. Yeah. Thanks for that insight. That's pretty cool.
Oh, yeah.
So I want to talk about Heckin Good Doggos because I know that's what you're working on most recently for a small company like Wet Ink Games. And I think it feels like it's like you set this transition up because it's not Starfinder, it's not D&D, it is you're playing as dogs, right?
Yeah.
So tell us some more about the project.
It's been one of those projects that's been in like the back of my mind for years. Even going as far back as college, I had just an idea for the project, and I called it Wild World. And it was just one of those things where I would just daydream and I'd write down notes, and I would just be like, what if dogs like got together and had like secret societies to protect their people, their best friends from monsters? And then over the years, I would read like comic books and other things. I've even played in other games. Like I think there's one called blanking on it. It's a Fate game. I want to say it's called Ferals, where you play as animals. And I love the idea so much that I really wanted to do my take on it. Like, I'm not trying to one up or replace any of the other games that are of a similar genre on the market, because there's pretty much room for everything. I mean, every designer is going to do
Sure.
something that's a little similar to other people. If I make a sci-fi game, there might be elements of Star Trek in there, but it won't be Star Trek.
Right.
Um, and so with Heckin Good Doggos, I just want to work with you and work with Brandon, and just make a game that's fun, that's got like my own vision in there, and like the vision of like the writers and all the other producers for it. And I just want to do like, this is like what I think would make for a great game, where I would like people to get together and you make characters and you go on adventures. And the nice thing about it is we're going to be doing just some additional, just like settings for it. Where it's like, oh, well, maybe in this one where just dogs doing regular dog things,
Doing
we have to
regular
get
dog
together to make
things.
sure that like the lost kid gets home from school. Yeah, because we're all worried about the kid. Or maybe we're going to have a setting set in a fantasy world, and they're all dogs in a village, and they're all like protecting the village from like like monstrous rats, or maybe there's a pack of like wargs that have set up nearby, and the wargs are like making problems for all the animals in the area. Another setting that we're working on is called Heckin Good Doggos, where we add more of a supernatural bent to it, and where dogs are members of like actual secret societies that have access to ancient magic that's been passed down through bloodlines for centuries, and they have to handle creatures that are emerging just from this thing which we like to call like the waking world, which is pretty much like my take on like the world that humanity can't see, but most animals are a little more like in tune
Mm,
with, and they can just detect more normally.
okay. I
And
like that. I like that.
it's a lot of fun. And you and Brandon have also been just amazing at like giving me feedback and like saying, no, this really, really works. We like this. We need to see more of this. And I think that it's one of those games where it's got so much potential. Um, it's not going, like I said, it's not going to replace any of the games out in the market. It's not going to be the next Pugmire, but I think that people who like games like Pugmire are also going to enjoy Heckin' Good Doggos.
Yeah. I, that's that's great. I hope so. I hope it gets some traction, and that will be. I don't know. We can't predict when we shouldn't predict when we'll actually be bringing that out for funding. But yeah, that's
Yeah.
definitely in development currently. Yeah, I've seen manuscripts. I know John's
Mhm.
talking out of their butt here. Like this is in progress.
And we've got
Oh,
some really cool things like planned, and uh, like we wanted to make it's a very rich world, like, and it's lighthearted too. One of
sure.
the main rules that we had going into developing it is we're not making a game where your character is going to get torn apart by a pack of dogs, because one, that's really really mean and sad, and two, that's just not fun to
Right.
play or to watch in a game. Um,
Yeah.
it's not exactly a game that's going to be like G-rated, but it's also not going to be a game where we're like glorifying violence against animals. And a lot of people like are wondering like how you could make a game like that, especially if there's going to be things like threats that dogs have to contend with. And the nice thing is, working with a bunch of people, we're just able to come up with so creative solutions that way people can be like, oh no, we still had a fun time. We didn't have to fight the evil dogs. We found a way around it.
Right. Good. Yeah. I mean that goes with pretty much any game, right? That if the only solution is to fight them, then maybe you've designed your adventure wrong.
Yeah, because I play miniature war games. I'm a huge Warhammer fan. Like, and I play games like Fallout and Call of Duty. And so I get the appeal of games where, like for fighting. Like I have a friend where he loves D&D, but he loves the strategic elements of it. For him, he'll make a
Yeah.
character, and then in his mind, he's working out tacticals. That's why pretty much all the characters he makes are tactically bent. That's a good way to play too. I mean, I'm not definitely not saying that, people are uncreative if they can't do that. It's just for a game like Heckin' Good Doggos, we want to make it so that you can still be like think tactically and still think with like a very aggressive mindset, but it's not going to be a game where if like, you're playing it with your kids, you don't have to explain to your kids afterwards, oh, we tore the little chihuahua apart.
Oh yeah,
It's
that's
like, oh yeah, no, that's
doesn't
very
need to be
sad.
part of the game.
Yeah, that wouldn't be fun at all.
Cool. Thanks, John. What else have you got going on in the RPGO sphere? Like, what's anything else you want to tell us about, or just not just RPGs, anything you want to tell us about? Like, what else you got going on in your life?
I am working on the next edition of the Stargate role-playing game. That has been a lot of fun. It was one of those games where the moment that Wyvern Games are the ones who are producing it, the moment they released their press release saying, "Oh, we're Wyvern Games and we're making this role-playing game and we have the official license of MGM," and it was one of those games or one of those opportunities where I sought out their website, I found their email address, and I just cold called them and said, "Hey, I'm a game designer. I have this many years of experience. This is what Stargate means to me. I've worked on these projects. Here is my CV, a curriculum vitae," which for readers at home who haven't heard about that, it's a really long resume. Resumes are normally short and punchy. These are more like, tell a story about yourself.
Right.
But I just sent that in, sent my writing samples, and I was just like, please, please, please let me in on this game. I would love to be on this game. And it panned out where I got contacted back a few days later. And it's one of those things where getting to work on a game that meant a lot to me. Um, it was one of those things where I loved the movie when it came out, and I caught the movie first in syndication on UPN. And then when it moved to Sci-Fi Channel, when I could really start watching it. And it was just one of those constants throughout college where it's like, oh, hey, it's Friday night. Hey, new episode of Stargate. And I love the universe, and getting to sit down and work with other creative people like Steffi Devon, who's amazing, and getting to sit down and share that energy that I talked about earlier.
Yeah.
And we just leapt into the project where, like, there really wasn't that much of like time needed for us to build up ideas. Where Steffi and I had like just a series of meetings, and then we were like, "Oh, let's do this, that, this. Oh, we've got 100 things. We need to cut this down." And I'm just so excited. We're going to be doing the Kickstarter soon, and it's a really fun game. I can't really talk too much about it, except that people who've checked out the mechanics which we have on the website, just Google Stargate, the role-playing game. We found ways so that it's not all a combat game, where you can make a group of soldiers. The soldiers can go out and they can just kill as many Jafads you want. But we actually work with making mechanics that make the investigative and the talking scenes, the diplomatic scenes, better and more fun, and how you can craft them into a scene. And it uses the fifth ed D&D mechanics, but it has enough of its own twist on it that you could be a social character surrounded by a bunch of soldiers, and you can have fun doing your social things. They can have fun doing their tactical things, but everybody can also do the same thing together. Some people are way better at it than others, but it's not like some D&D games where it's like, I've got the +4 strength, I'm going to stab that thing with a sword. You've got a -1 to your strength. You're not going to, you can try to hit it, but you're not going to do as much.
Right. Maybe I'll roll a 20.
Yeah. This one is, oh, like, I can do this scene. I can do it pretty okay. Maybe I'm good at it. You would be excellent at doing it, but we're going to work together.
That's cool. That sounds really neat.
Other things that I'm working on is I'm working on the Shackleton expansion for Star Trek Adventures.
Okay.
It's a fun new section of the universe. Pretty much it's an unexplored section that Starfleet is just now breaking into, where they're just now exploring it, and we got a lot of cool twists that are going on. It's going to be a lot of fun for players. It offers a brand new area for not just, to boldly go where no man has gone before, but it's also a place where like the people who run the adventure and who play it can add their own mark on the Star Trek universe. So it looks like it's going to be a lot of fun.
That does sound really fun. Well, cool. Anything? Is that it? Is that it? Are we ready to do our pitchorama here at the end?
Sure.
All right. So I'm going to put 5 minutes on this timer here, and that's all we're going to get. We're going to get 5 minutes, and I'm going to start with my little, very small piece that I've of idea here, and then you and I are going to spend 5 minutes kind of blocking out what that might look like as an RPG, like, and we can go kind of whatever direction. It's very free form. But all right, I'm going to put us on the timer. Here we go.
Okay.
All right. So the idea is, I think there's some merit to like doing some sort of like Fantastic Voyage style comedy adventure something.
Okay.
You know the Fantastic Voyage, the I think it's an Isaac Asimov movie. It's where they shrink down the tiny little ship, and then they put it in the person's bloodstream, and it has to go cut out a blood clot in the
Yeah.
guy on the table. So
I
like,
when I was a kid, I rode that ride at Disney World. Yeah.
sure, exactly. It was definitely one of those Disney movies. So I'm thinking like, I mean, it would be really easy to like kind of almost make it like a fiasco playset kind of a thing where you've got like, well, I'm the epidemiologist and I'm the captain and like I'm the con operator or whatever, and like we're going in and doing this stuff, and because it's fiasco, nothing comes out well.
Hmm.
But you could also do it maybe a little bit more. I mean, you mentioned Powered by the Apocalypse. I think it could work in the Powered by the Apocalypse setting too. But then I don't know, the 2D20 stuff that's a really solid system too for if you wanted to make it more like that competent operation, like we got to cut out the blood clot kind of stuff, you know.
I
But
kind of like a mixture of like the 2D20, but also Fiasco, where I kind of like the idea of everybody sits down and they make the crew of this little microship.
mm-hmm.
But then they have to build up to like some big epic thing where they're told, okay, you're going in there and you're cleaning out a valve in the heart, or you have to go in there and you've got to remove like a blockage. But I just kind of like this idea that maybe like some of the crew might not like each other, or maybe like
Mm.
something like very like Machiavellian is going on. Like, what if you're in the little microship, you're going into the body, but you don't know that one of the members of the crew is like a member, is like an assassin, where he wants to kill this politician that
All
you're here to
right.
stay, and so he's going to be doing his best to sabotage the efforts. And
Okay. So then it almost like you know the game. Well, you mentioned, do you know that you played it, it, I'm stumbling over my words. We only got 2 minutes left. The Battlestar Galactica board game where you like never know what everyone's motivations are, you know, and
I always get
everyone's
I always get
uh,
jettisoned down the airlock. Yeah.
right. So like that kind of that kind of an element running in the background where it's like who on like maybe I just didn't roll well, like, or maybe I'm sabotaging the mission. Like you
Mhm.
can't tell, you know. Um, I like that. That's cool. Would it? Is there? What about? I'm thinking of the Futurama episode where they spoof all this and they go, but they're inside Fry, and he goes
Mhm.
inside himself at the end and fights for his own body at the end of that episode
Oh yeah,
um,
I get the worms.
against the worms. Right, great episode. So like, how how's that for a twist? Where like you said a politician, but what if you're in one of the people's bodies that is on the mission?
Mhm.
Like, I mean, I guess that could be a twist somewhere.
I kind of like the idea of like maybe you won't know. Like, what if like there's a deck of cards and you
Ooh,
deal them out to the players at the beginning of the game, and as the game goes on, you have to flip over the cards like privately, and that's your motivations. So I kind of like the idea that maybe you don't know if you're like the silent, where maybe you go in there and you're like, oh, I'm the world's leading brain surgeon, and I've never lost a patient, so I'll never lose. I won't lose this one. But then
yeah.
in like the second act, you flip over a card, and it's like, oh, I'm being blackmailed and I have to kill this guy or they'll kill my family.
Oh man,
And
I like that. The sudden
yeah,
reversal.
I think
Yeah,
that'd be a lot of fun.
yeah. A 2 act structure like that. That's good. That's good. How would we? I don't know. There's still a little bit of time left here on the timer. Like, can these kind of like storytelling games that lean a lot that way, like, do they? It's hard to. Sometimes it can be difficult to play with the right people who are kind of willing to go with that humor, to go with
Hmm.
that thing. Is there any insight in the last few seconds here that kind of to help make a comedy game successful?
I think kind of with Fiasco, maybe give players a certain number of like cards, and like the cards will have like 1 to 3, and there'll be points that you can give to people. And I don't know, I gotta get this thought out. Whenever like someone does a scene, the other players will be like, "Oh, that was a good scene," and they'll hand the card over face down, and you won't know how many points you've been given. So you got everybody going, "You did a great scene, Matthew," and they all hand you cards. And you're
Oh,
like, "Oh, they thought I did a great job." You flip them over, and
they're
it
all
could be
bad
ones
cards.
or negative ones.
Yeah, yeah. That's great. That's great. That's our 5 minutes though. It beat. I realize you probably can't hear it because it doesn't. It's
I
not
heard
through
it.
the
I just had to get the thought out.
it's not through the computer. So that's fine. That's great. I think that's fun. I think there's some merit there for that game. Maybe we'll continue discussions offline. Nobody steal our idea who's watching this video.
Definitely.
Uh, but speaking of all the people watching the video, thank you for watching. This is our Gen Con 2020 content for Wedding Games, and hope you are wherever you are in the world, and no one's at Gen Con, so you're not left out this year because nobody's there, and
Yeah.
so we're all distance and having fun still in our distance. So again, thank you, John, for being on. Thanks
It's my
for all your
pleasure.
contributions and your work and talking to me today. So all right, that's the end. Say goodbye, everybody.
Thank you. Have a great day.